implies that the activity that you do, you can use your life and you can use all the activities that you do in an integrated way, in a godly way, by basically offering them to the higher good.
Welcome to Bigger Than the Hustle podcast, where I bring you real conversations with entrepreneurs on how they live their life outside their business. We deep dive into the energies, the motivations, the disciplines, the habits, and the mindset that give them success in their life, which leads to success in their business. Now, today, if you're interested in conscious schooling, if you're interested in becoming an author, if you're interested in moving from corporate to setting up your own business, then today's guest is right up your street. Her name is Irina Childs, and she's done all these things plus many more, which we're going to go into. So without further ado, hi, Irina.
Hi, Pavek. Thank you very much for inviting me on your podcast.
No, thank you so much for coming. Now, if you can give, I'm going to hand the mic over to you. If you can give a short introduction to yourself, and then we can run the conversation from there.
Okay, I will start by what is it I'm doing right now. So in 2010, I have funded an Integral Studies Academy, which is an online educational academy, which is targeted to adults who are looking to enhance their life and who are looking to basically find an alternative to the current mainstream universities. And we have collaborated over these years with some other universities whereby some of the programs we offer are not actually offered within the mainstream universities.
So that's what you're doing currently, right? So
yes.
You talk about conscious schooling. So if you can explain a little bit about the ethics behind it and what made you get into this.
I have a huge passion for education and a huge passion for helping people. It took me a long while to realize I'm actually a visionary. And it was only when several people told this to me, I thought, okay, yes, actually it does make sense. I'm a visionary. And also a humanitarian. So I like people to thrive. I like to see people reach their ultimate highest potential, reach the highest level of happiness and maintain it and not having to choose. And my father was a university professor, and I think childhood does influence somehow how we turn up. And where I spent some of my childhood, I have memories since I was about 3, and I was actually following my dad everywhere, and I was in the steps of universities and then going to grandparents and so on. So it's almost like the academia. I grew up with it. And I have noticed that I have learned faster and better from teachers that I admired, and teachers that were very passionate, and teachers that were also embodying what they were teaching. So not just reading from the book. And I think all teachers, when they go into teaching, in all fairness, there is a calling in doing that. It's a little bit like being a nurse or being a doctor. You don't become a nurse just for the money, because you have a higher calling, right? And I think most teachers have that as well. But some of them are much more talented in actually embodying what they're talking about. And if you have a chemistry teacher that absolutely loves chemistry, you'll end up loving chemistry. If you have a literature teacher that absolutely loves literature, you'll end up writing because you are drawn to that energy of, how they, yeah.
I fully agree with everything you say there. And what's quite exciting about what you said, you went through a few things there, and there's so much to dig into. When you say visionary, what do you mean by that when you call yourself a visionary?
I have a perspective on what humanity has as potential. And I would, for example, call visionary Nikola Tesla. Yeah. He had a vision, and I'm driving his car now, but during his time, he was also a genius, right? A bit like Einstein. But during his time, he wasn't appreciated for his power or his view of what is possible. He was a little bit ahead of the time.
Mm-hmm.
And my vision is to do with this capacity that we have innate in ourselves. And I can't remember exactly when I heard this, but it was early in my life when I heard this saying, which it's almost like the drive or the engine behind my life and everything I strive to do. So the saying was along the lines of, all the human beings, so all of us, are born with 3 chances of becoming a genius. And unless we do something about it, we lose them one by one by one.
Wow.
So that, I was like, oh my God, I cannot be losing mine. And, absolutely strive to just use my tokens, basically.
And it's funny you say that, because human potential is something that I'm fascinated by. I believe that every human being has the potential to create something and shape this world to the way that they perceive it should be, right? I think there's a lot of things that can dumb that down. So you have your environment, your upbringing, the people around you, etc. And it's trying to break free of those shackles to create the life you really want to create. And I think, like yourself, when you've had a saying or something that you've tapped into and it's resonated with you deeply. Mine was when someone, well, I don't know if I read it or someone said that to me, which was everything that you see around you that's not natural, in effect, that's man-made, started from a thought. So the smallest technology to the biggest buildings all started in someone's head. They put action behind it and brought it out to the world. And that's when I realized the potential of the human being, us as people. We have such, if we can shape our lives and shape our environment to bring that out of us and really sort of come into the world in the best way, this world would be an awesome place. There'd be a lot more happier people. The vibration levels would be a lot higher. And, we could create an environment that nurtures not just us, but for all the new generations to come. Now,
Absolutely.
I see what you're doing with the schooling side of it. So you're saying about adult education and you're talking about universities and having an alternative. So how does it alternate from the traditional mainstream schooling methods for adults?
So at the beginning, when I set up the academy, I've brought together a group of professors from different line of thought and from different universities around Europe. And over the past 10 years, we collaborated online. And what we have done during the first years of the academy being set up, we spent a lot of this time researching and trying to understand what is out there. And as part of that research, we discovered that, and this goes back 10 years, right? So it could be even more now. We've discovered there are 75,000 types, so not different institution types of holistic schools.
Wow.
And some of the most known are the Montessori, and there are some that are absolutely mainstream, they're very known, but those are schools of thought which are actually alternative education for schools and for children who basically, from 6 to 18-year-olds, I call it, from 6 to 18-year-olds or from 5. And however, there is a huge gap in when the 18-year-old finished such holistic education that has developed all their qualities and skills and creativity. There isn't the same, not anywhere near the same amount of offers at the 18 plus area on the market. There are a few, and they tend to follow certain schools of thought, how I call them. So, for example, there is the Maharishi University in America, which is founded by, it's on the principles of Ramana Maharishi and finding your true self and so on. But there isn't one that was, appealing to even the online environment. And yet this is a huge, now you can see pockets that have appeared, and there are some that are trying to fit in onto this extraordinary search that the human heart has, and even the human mind, because the more you have materially, or the more you have in terms of you've done your business, you are rich, you've got your millions, you've got everything you want. I have actually worked with high net worth individuals, millionaires, billionaires, who are asking me, what else? What else is there? And it might sound, oh, this is very small niche. It isn't. It isn't a small niche. There's a huge amount of people who are trying to find what is actually at the top of the Maslow pyramid of needs. What is there? How do I tap into that? So this is how we this is how I came up with the concept, and
And so you're saying the top of the Maslow's hierarchy, which is self-actualization, isn't it? When you reach the pinnacle, I think, like you're saying, if you deal with high net worth individuals, so you've got millionaires, billionaires, extra, so they've amassed, financial wealth, they've amassed, whatever they've amassed physically, but a lot of the time, the ability to look inwards is lacking, trusting yourself and trusting your being and your path on the way the universe has decided to lay your path out for you. And sometimes on that looking for the financial wealth, sometimes you lose yourself as a human being. Yourself, right? And I think when you can find that again, then you're on the path back to self-actualization outside. Obviously, we live in a Western culture, right? So that Western culture dictates that we have to live our lives in a certain ways in terms of monetary. We have to earn money. We've got bills to pay. We have children. We have a life to live. But at what point does that stop the pursuit of us as human beings in trying to help our community, help the people around us? And is it just about wealth creation? For what reason? A lot of the time people want money, you want to create wealth, but without real purpose or real ability to give back in a holistic way, where you've been the conduit for the universe to create wealth. But at what point are you then sharing and giving that back to try and help others on their journey and their path? And I think that's where sometimes things get lost. And that's why this concept that you're talking about, it sounds really interesting. So with the conscious schooling side of things, why is it that you've got the mainstream university? Obviously, there's a lot of talk right now about universities we're being in a pandemic. Students are not obviously being served very well right now in that environment. It's like a nephew of mine was going to start university, and I gave him some advice not to actually go this year, because a lot of the first year, especially in university, is about social. It's about meeting people. It's about interacting. It's not really so much about the education. And if you're not actually going to get that in your first year because of the social distancing, because of the pandemic that's out there, really, I'd say you're losing 90% of your first year university, the traditional university system. Now, with that traditional university system, obviously it's promoted by the governments, and they have a high sort of understanding on how to reach a mainstream population. Where are the barriers for your type of schooling to reach that kind of level? What needs to happen?
So the way I see integral education, and when I feel like explaining a little bit about this concept, integral education. So one of the things that is currently happening in the traditional universities, which, by the way, they serve the purpose and they still serve a certain purpose, and it's very good. However, for example, if you go and study mathematics, you are so focused for 3 years or 5 years into using only one part of your brain, which is the logical, the analytical, and you're actually not developing and not fulfilling your creative side at all, because you are very into the rigorous part of the brain. And it's the same with engineering, architecture, almost the same with management, which is only, using a certain, concept, and it's quite rigid. And whereas if you're doing interior design, art, literature, poetry, creative writing, you are developing the creative side. And for too many years, it's been accepted that, if you're a poet, then you are probably dreamy and not necessarily logical, or you need a calculator to go grocery shopping. Or and is this, in reality, we all have the left side of the brain and the right side of the brain. And what has been uncovered during our research and other research is that geniuses have actually got something in common, and that is they used equally the left side of the brain and the right side of the brain in a very, in a similar proportion. And if you look at Newton and Einstein, yes, they were very rigorous, but they played musical instruments. So they had that side of them, which is very interesting, Papek, with the podcast that you have, because you pick the entrepreneurs and say, tell me what's behind. So I'm talking now about, this is things that happen behind lives of genius people. They actually had a way or a hobby that were using and energizing and utilizing the other side of the brain. So
Yeah, go on. You go.
So in integral education, I am looking to, we are looking to support people to use both sides of the brain, discover it, be aware of how it works, and have the normal traditional knowledge that's being passed. For example, we have a side which is called the integral architecture. When you become an architect, you are being taught concepts like light, dimensions, certain parts of geometry, and so on. But an integral architecture and integral education, we are looking to also explain concepts that were up to these days kept only for initiates, if you want. They were the esoteric truth behind it. For example, there is this concept of sacred geometry. The sacred geometry and the golden number is been used by Michelangelo, it's been used by all great artists. They know about it. It's not being taught in the mainstream university. It's not being taught because basically the teachers don't have this knowledge. Exactly, and experience.
Now, from so what I'm trying to understand, so I understand the concept, I understand the makeup of this. How does this play out? So if, say, someone comes to you and they want to enroll and they want to take on a course, is it similar to like university now, where you pick a subject and you study that, or is it a one solution that they go into and they get taught lots of different things based on that? How does it work sort of physically?
Yeah, so up to now we actually partner with other institutions, and we run a 9-month pilot. Interestingly, with a school in India that was run with 300 students, and we have actually selected to partner with them. One, because their students already have been trained as yoga students. It was a school that was run by Swami, and those students have been taught for about 10 years techniques of Kriya Yoga, which help them with enhancing awareness, help them with focusing, help them understand meditation, practice it, and have some results. So we run a year of about 4 different subjects for them. And in the way the subjects were taught and assessed, then this new experience was given to the students. But to answer, at the moment, I'm opening the doors to all educators who want to understand about the integral education and have a year as a mentorship. Because the way I see it at the moment is partnering with more and more institutions and partnering with other teachers and other educators and universities, introducing these concepts and then working on this partnership to spread this information across.
So when you were initially setting this up, you mentioned that you contacted educators who are currently in education, and partnering with them to try and build a structure and build a course, etc. How did you sell the concept to them? I know it's not really selling, but how did you open the, if you say, doors for them to come in and they were interested in being a part of this?
That's a very interesting question, Pavik. So I've been very, from the quote on geniality, I've searched for ways in scientific ways in which geniality can be awakened. And I discovered, I think when I was about 12 or 14, I've discovered in my father's library a yoga book. And in there were some exercises of how, to control your breathing. And then it says you can control your heart if you do so many things for so long and so on. And it was also about how you can tap into the 90% of the brain that's not being used. Most of us. Yeah. Some people say 10%, some 15%, depending on the level of optimism. But there's a huge potential of our brain which lies unconsciously, and how can that be used? And I've started to practice yoga, and then later on I came across a yoga school that's actually an international school, and it has about 50,000 people. So initially I have discussed about this concept with university professors and professionals who were also part of the yoga school. So they have themselves practiced certain concepts and reach a certain level of self-knowledge and self-development. They also have a professional life, like I have a professional life. And we basically just, I proposed the vision, and they're like, okay, it makes sense.
Perfect. So it must have been your energy. It must have been something about you that comes across, because it's not, obviously, the concept is different, but I think it's it's you as a person. It's the energy you give off, and it's the belief, like you said, the belief you put behind your idea, putting that out into the world and attracting, because I do believe it's attracting the right people, drawing them into, helping you on your path and your journey to create this vision and make it a reality. I've always believed in intention. So when you have a good intention and you live your life by pure intentions, and everything is about trying to help and trying to be of service to, to the universe or to people around you, I can't see anyone ever failing, because the heart that you come with that message, it draws people. Even if it's not, we can talk about words, we can talk about expressions, we can talk about communication, but if they're all backed up with a foundation of love or a foundation of pure wanting to help and bringing something out in the world, then I can't see it ever failing. And it's like you said, it's putting the energy behind it that you're that's what you're trying to do. You're trying to help people, and you're trying to support, and you're trying to move the system forward, right? Because the education system, like I have two children, so I have a daughter that's 14 and a son that's 9, and Wonderful. They're both in the traditional education system. Now my son's more he's in a Hindu school, so it's more of a Krishna consciousness. And he learns, so he's 9 and he's already doing sort of yoga, meditation, learning Sanskrit at school. So that's why we chose it. And also it's just down the road, so we can walk into school. So that was another big thing, with my daughter's being more of the mainstream education. And like you said, it's tapping into the different parts of the brain the creative side. My daughter is very creative, but she likes maths as well. She's very logical in that way, and maths, right? Whereas my son, he's very creative in terms of logic, but he's like an engineer. He likes building things with his hands. And we're trying to then create a path for them and open up opportunities where we put things in front of them that we think, okay, you're going to maybe like that, maybe not like that, and then whichever way. And then wherever you decide to lead your path, you do it because you're happy to do that, and there'll be no judgment from us. We're just there to support and help as parents, right?
Wonderful.
Now, another thing that I wanted to talk to you about and pick your brain, because I know a lot of people listening to this may be looking to move on to this path, is writing a book. Now, I know we had a brief conversation yesterday about this, and I told you that on Sunday, after many, many years of deliberation, I started writing my first book. And I'm so happy because it's given me a little bit of structure in the morning. It's given me a little bit of time where I spend some time with myself on my thoughts and putting them down on paper. And I promised myself every morning I will, once I've made our lunch, I will sit down and write. Now, can you give me a little bit of coaching or a little bit of support to say, how did you go from your ideas, putting the disciplines to put it down on paper, and then coming out in the world with it? So what kind of things can you help me with?
So I thank you for this question. I actually have a love for words, and I view writers and educators as having a huge responsibility in influencing the minds and the hearts and the lives of their readers. I have been influenced by phenomenal books, and because you mentioned on the intention, the value and intention, one of the books that I have given to the team at the academy in the first year when we've celebrated 1 year was The Intention Experiment, which is a phenomenal book by Lynn McTaggart. It's hugely eye-opening, to say. So I have a love for words, and I have been writing since I started writing, and I was just recording my thoughts and different observations, and I also started to write poetry, and I was very, very shy, and even though I had some friends who were encouraging me to publish, I didn't feel like I could publish. And I ended up publishing due to a wonderful chance, but not by chance, meeting with someone who after that became my literary agent, and just took a manuscript that I emailed across and published that book. And it's been very successful. I was very happy.
Do you have that with you there? Is it anywhere near you?
I have it. Yes, I do have. I have it here, actually. This is the book. It's a book of poetry and philosophical thoughts, and it's called Soul Petals, and it's bilingual.
What did it say? Yeah, I was going to say, what language is that? French? That was the topic.
Romanian.
Oh, Romanian, right.
Yes.
I could tell by the accent you weren't, UK born. So,
yeah, Romanian. So Romanian, Italian, and Spanish are Latin language. They sound right. So it's called Soul Petals, and basically it was a manuscript of writings, of poems and philosophical thoughts that I've sent to the publisher. Was actually I've sent to this person that I've met, and she forwarded to the publisher, and publisher said, okay, let's publish it, and within three months was published.
Wow. And when was that? When was that?
In 2013.
Wow. Okay. So about 7 years ago. Yeah. And do you think now it's interesting with like you said, so it seems like quite a traditional writing method in terms of you wrote your book, a literary agent, they probably looked over your manuscript, gave you some idea to change it maybe a little bit, and then bring it out and produce it and print it and things like that. Have you seen that change recently in terms of people self-publishing and things?
Yes, and I'll definitely encourage you and everyone else, if you want to self-publish, either find a publisher that they're called hybrid publishers, who they can review the book or help you, or find, even on Facebook, find groups of writers. I'm part of a group of about 30,000 writers, and join a group and actually keep with that energy. It's almost like if you want to even career-wise, if you want to pivot from one industry to the other, you'll start to meet with the people from that industry. You'll start to forge relationships with people who have done that. And through osmosis and through talk, it just comes a bit very, it's a process, right? So it's a process of writing it and having a clear thought, and then refining the writing, and also choosing what is the final message. Because as I said, personally, I think there's a responsibility we have as writers to actually put forward beautiful information, uplifting information, honest information. If you write something that is not like life writing or coaching advice, it's important to put things that are authentic, and also it's extremely important to put the truth, in terms of, we all have humbling experience. We all are in our lives at some point. You learn through your experiences, and they can be very high experience, or they can be you're down on your knees, you just completely having a hard time. And I see the trend is very much towards people being more and more authentic, which is extraordinary. It's very good. It's very good. A book I read I actually listened to it on audio, is Chillpreneur. And it's exactly about that. The entrepreneur is the old version of being very stressed, being putting in all the hours, driven by adrenaline. So it's shifting hugely. People want to have a balance. They want their well-being.
I think it's so important, especially for me. Like I've set up my business 20 years ago, so my own business, and that was in the days. And this, when I mentor young people, and I say, when I set up my business, there was no Google, there was no Facebook, there wasn't Instagram. They almost look at me like blank-eyed, like, what? There was a world before Google and there was a world before Facebook. And I said, well, I had a shop, Yellow Pages, and a fax machine, and that's how I started my business, and moved all the way through the information age. Now, almost without the internet, I can't do anything, and that's an interesting transition, and that shows the energy of an entrepreneur in terms of continually adapting to your outside environment and making your business work irrespective of what's happening there. And I've always said, to be a success in anything, you have to have the ability to adapt or pivot on the times when you need to. If you get too stuck in your ways and you try and hold on to something that maybe is not a thing that resonates with you anymore, or your life has changed, you've changed as a person and you've evolved, and that no longer serves you anymore, and that person that you were 20 years ago is not the person you are now. So therefore, does that mean that you are still holding on to something that's not there? It's like when you meet people, and we had a school reunion a few years ago, and you can't look at that person as the same person as you knew at school, right? Because so much has happened in life and you've changed. If someone met me and they thought I was the same person I was at school, I would say I've probably changed 5 times since then to become the person I am today. The quiet, shy boy to someone that's sort of ambivert, can pick it up and drop it down, etc. And they're the things that life has shaped, knocked me into different shapes and created this sort of rough edge person that you see in front of you today. But and it's so important to accept that about yourself, right? And it's so important to say, I will continually evolve. The next 20 years, I don't know what's going to bring, but I will continually evolve. Now, I know you've done that with your professional career as well. So if you can talk a little bit about that. So, when you've worked corporates and then you've set up stuff and then you've come back, what gave you, first of all, the belief that you could do it? Because some people, I think, get caught in a security trap where they believe, oh, I can't leave this job and try something by myself because it may not work, or I may lose money, or I may lose time, etc. But what gave you the belief, first of all, the belief, and secondly, the energy to say, actually, now that doesn't serve me anymore, and I'm now going to move on? Because I knew you were working with high net worth individuals, you've worked for PwC, you've set up this schooling. So it's a really nice transition of things. But at some point you say, okay, maybe this is now no longer me and I need to move on. So if you can go a little bit into that, because I know a lot of people listen, we may have those kind of thoughts.
Thank you. Thank you for the question, Pavel. So it's important to listen to your heart very much and follow your happiness. You might have joined a career, or you have joined a certain profession because you are passionate about it, or you joined I don't know, maybe you're at the beginning of life and your parents told you, go in IT because this will make you money, become a consultant, and you do that. Like yourself, I was also mentoring teams that work for me, and I'll sometimes work with graduates who came into big corporates, and you can see they're putting the 25th and 27th hour of the day to make themselves successful, and some of them, they will burn out pretty quick, or they found themselves, and I had a few conversations with youngsters like this around me, and I'll just say, why are you doing it? You need to find, if you do something that is coming from your heart and you are passionate about it, it's not like you won't get tired, but you won't feel it like work. It will be so enjoyable. It will drive you. I would say if that drives, if you find yourself, and this is how I actually sailed through different roles that I took. If I found that either the company has changed values or my values have transformed and I value more my quiet time, then I value being in front of the client. When I really enjoyed being in front of the client, I would spend all hours there. If through meditation or through other reasons, or through writing the poetry, I discovered that a more silent, quiet part of me started to take over my life, and I actually enjoy that very much. I wouldn't compromise on my happiness. I would just look to find the win-win solution. And I have bags of stories where the roles I went for, they were adapted to the skill that I could offer, or to the time that I want to work. Just change the working hours, maybe not 5 days, maybe 3 days, more, maybe not 40 hours, maybe 35 hours. Try and always spend time with yourself and work out, does this serve me? Does this keep me happy? Is this what I want to be doing? Is this what I want to be known for? And if the answer starts to be kind of like no, then it's a good time to be very honest and just look for alternatives. Look for...
I like the way you use happiness as your metric in life. And I think it's such a sobering thought when someone mentions that to me, because for a long time I wasn't in that space. For a long time I was chasing a big, capitalist dream of, cars and houses and things like this, until I reached rock bottom and I was, broken, as I say. And only since then, which was 8 years ago, have all the changes happened in my life, because I realized that pursuit of happiness, or the society's version of happiness, didn't serve me anymore. And therefore, I started investing in my health, started investing in my mind, started investing in my environment, the people around me. And that's created the version that you see here today. And this will be my trajectory for the next 60 years, the next 80 years, or however long I live, because I know how much it's serving my life right now. And the metric of happiness is so big. And I find happiness you can tap into, or where you can understand what makes you happy when you go quiet, like you said, in terms of times of meditation, in times of trusting yourself, in times of taking time to be with yourself. I heard a quote which said, people find it very uncomfortable to be in a room by themselves with their thoughts for any period of time, because it scares them.
That's a sign they are doing something wrong.
Yes.
Because if everything is aligned, if you are happy, if you are content, if you are in the right relationship for you, in the right job for you, if you are the main character in your life and you leave it correctly for you, silence should not scare you.
Silence should actually draw you in, shouldn't it? Where you want to be in a space where you can think, you
A
can really,
recharge.
yeah, where you feel yourself. And someone, again, another talk I listened to, and he said when he first became aware that maybe life was becoming claustrophobic, and he'd made decisions which weren't serving him anymore, the first thing he did, trying to break down this ego, was to sit on a chair, fully naked, in front of a mirror, and really be with himself for about an hour and just, look at himself, be in that thought process to try and break down that ego. And I thought that was a really interesting method, because that's you, isn't it? That's you as nature intended, with nothing on, just staring at yourself and being with yourself. And I think so many people would find that quite scary if you're not very comfortable with you and your being. And a lot of people, use a lot of distractions these days, don't they? Like the phone, like TV, like the internet, like being around people maybe that don't serve them, alcohol, drugs, food. They've all become distractions, haven't they? And distractions from actually looking at your life and saying, this doesn't serve me anymore. And it's actually easier to numb that out through alcohol, through food, through drugs, through bad company, than to actually face your life and make a decision and say, actually, I need to change this.
I think that's why people who are coaches and mentors, and it's extremely important to be visible, because sometimes people are searching for this kind of solutions and they don't know where to find them. And it's really important that they can reach to people like yourself, like myself, like many others who are now appearing on the market, and have a conversation, or really look for like-minded people who are looking for the things that you look for. Because what happens when you are in a company or in a corporate, and even though you think, oh, I'm going to do something else, if you are in that energy, it's very difficult to actually shift. It's very difficult to pivot, because your mind is saturated with all kinds of fears. What will so-and-so colleague say? Well, it doesn't matter. It's not going to be on your deathbed asking you anything. You are the only one who's going to be there. And you came by yourself. You'll go back where you came from by yourself. So just have the courage to be yourself, and that version. And you gave very interesting, this example with really sit and look at yourself. I live in a natural reservation, which is wonderful. And I enjoy looking at animals. And sometimes I was taking phone calls, even before the COVID-19. I would have maybe some days that I would work from home. And you'll think that the entire company is on fire. People were, just like, this, rush, important. And all I had to do was actually take my mobile and walk into the lounge and look at the field of cows who are asleep. And the whole thing, I would be on my phone, not in my office, not looking at the screen, not looking at the spreadsheet, and just look out at the nature. And you know what? None of the animals have forgotten how to be animals. Humans have forgotten how to be humans.
It's so true. It's like when they say an oak tree will only ever produce oaks, not bananas, because it knows it's an oak tree and that's what it's there to serve, right? And like you said, where do you think this confusion has come from, in terms of people's path, or an almost analysis paralysis, overthinking everything and then actually doing nothing because you've thought too much? And I think sometimes I can suffer with that, where you have so many ideas and so many thoughts, and you're trying to pick one, or you're trying to say, okay, let me focus on something. And because you want to sort of move the bar on everything, you can't pick one because these all seem so important. And that's why, when I mentioned to you that I started this book now, the book was part of one of 6 things that I would have liked to start. And I said, I just want to do one thing. Let me pick one thing. And it's taken me months, like I told you, it took me months to get to that stage, and said, actually, I'm going to put the other 5 in a box, and I'm going to pick this one thing. And for the next year, 2 years, whatever, I'm going to focus and concentrate on this. And for that was a huge leap for me, because I'm such a person where I find it hard to let go of things, and I'm learning with patience, with discipline, with focus, we can achieve more. than trying to sort of juggle 8 balls and continuously dropping them and picking them up. So your nature seems to be very calm. You seem to be a very positive person. You seem to be someone that sees the glass half full. You seem to be someone that always sees the opportunity in most situations. Where has that come from for you?
I would say also experience, because I get enthusiastic very, very easily, and and because of that, I have ideas, and then I think, oh, I can help 20 people or 30, or might just go for the 100. Don't stop, just go for the 100. And I had a tendency to pile things up. Even the fact that I set up the academy 10 years ago. I was still holding a full-time job in corporates, which sometimes is 50 hours, sometimes is 60 hours. Mm-hmm. Went through the ranks from consultant to senior consultant to senior manager director. It all kind of like piled up. I was still writing the poetry on Saturdays. I was teaching yoga classes. It was just never ending. And I think any entrepreneur or anyone who has a huge drive or high achiever, if they're honest, they'll confess that they've burned out, or they had real crashing times, and they have actually completely changed the perspectives of life. And my first such moment was when I was, I think, about 31. I finished my second degree, so I've done engineering, then I've done a business degree with Open University, whilst having full-time work, bringing up a stepdaughter who's a teenager, and doing this degree that lasted about 7 years because I did an MBA. And I thought, that's it, you have the MBA. Now you have the MBA, you've got everything. And as it happened, in the last year of my MBA, I partnered with someone from the company. I was working in an IT company, one of the directors there, and we've set up a joint venture for real estate investments. So we started, traveling a lot and doing that. And so the first tick was go up the career ladder, done that. Do the MBA, yeah, done that. And then this partner said, how quick do you want to make 3 million? Let's just say 3 in the first year, in 5 years. And the markets were very good. And within the 12 months, I sat down with pen and paper, and I've hit the first million. And I've hit a monstrous depression as well, because I've done the MBA, I've done the career, I've hit the million, and there was no shining light. There was no ta-da moment there for me. Yeah, and I was completely emptied. Mm-hmm. And that was one of the pivotal moments in my life when I thought, you can't be doing this. You need to go for the meaningful. I mean, I thought I was going for the meaningful when I went for the MBA and for the making of the million. Mm-hmm. But it wasn't that. And I'm not singular in this experience. I remember reading an article in Business Harvard Review, I don't know, maybe about 15 years ago. And the article went on and on for pages, like a dozen pages, which was about this high executives, high-flying executives who, after 2 heart attacks or 3 divorces, will find themselves void of any sense. And the writer was also, he finished Eton, or he was very well regarded himself, and he was basically, the conclusion of this article was, the only way to have continuity in your life is to also have a higher purpose. Back to the pyramid of needs of Maslow, yes. and back to the essence of our heart, and just, you have to have a spiritual pilot in your life that drives you upwards, because everything else will decay, whether you like it or not. You don't take it with you.
And I think it's also, everything you say I resonate with deeply, and I think also it's letting go of the control of your external circumstances, right? So it's having faith in your ability, having faith in your energy, and then saying, whatever the universe has for me, or whatever my high calling is, please take me to that, and I will, tread on that path. Sometimes I think so many people get caught up in trying to control the environment, trying to control the people outside of them, trying to control their future, trying to control all these things. And what was the realization for me was the only thing you can control is yourself, your thoughts, and your reactions to things that are happening to you. That's it. You can't control any other people. You can't control what happens to you from the outside. You can only control how you deal with it, how you process it in your own mind, right?
Correct.
Now, because of this, it allowed me to let go of so much, let go of things that were not serving me anymore, and let go of that big dream, which I thought it was. But then I realized I was chasing something that really wasn't real. And then once I started looking inwards and investing in myself, started to go running, started to understand nutrition, started to understand how movement helps me, try to understand the people around me, the conversations I was having with them. Once I changed, the whole world changed, because my whole perspective on life changed. And what was important to me then was no longer important to me. And what was important to me now was feeling nourished mentally and physically, but feeling a part of, like you said, feeling a part of my environment, feeling part of my community, and then trying to think, how can I give back? How can I be of service? When people talk about jobs, there's such a negative connotation to work, right? Oh, I'm going to a job, or I can't wait till Friday, till the weekend in this. And like you said earlier in our talk, when you work and you're fulfilled and you're giving service to the highest ability that you have, it's not seen as work, it's seen as giving service, right? You're seen as you're contributing to other people, other communities, other things, with the things that with the knowledge you have, with the skills you have. And when it's like that, you don't see it as work, it blurs into just giving service. And when it's seen as service so I'm from the Hindu faith, and we have this concept called seva. And seva is when you're serving other people, and you're serving with your time, your energy, your skills, whatever it is, and without any expectation of return. You're just giving because it's in your heart to give. And I think if more people saw the concept of work like that, so if rather than seeing it, I'm going to a call center, I'm just giving service, see it as giving service to the person who's ringing because they need my help and they need my support. And if it's seen like that, it comes outside of yourself. It's not it's not selfish anymore. And then if you feel that that's not serving you anymore, what will serve you, right? How can you become alive again? How can you become vibrant again? And if that means making hard decisions, make hard decisions, but have faith that the universe will support you, because you are treading the path of happiness as opposed to treading the path of, I need to earn money. I get it. Some people are especially now, in a very stressful situation where things are uncertain. But if you can go quiet and know that things will always be okay, it doesn't matter what it is, things will open up for you. I've always believed that. I've always been blessed that all my life, and I know all my life to the end of days, I'll always be okay, because I've just got too many good people around me that are ready, if I fall, to pick me up and help me out, dust me down and move me on my way. And if I can't use that energy to be of help and be of service to the people that don't have that, then what's the point of my life? What's the point of me being here? That's what I believe.
Yeah, this is exactly defining the purpose and going beyond. And you're right, people end up making the wrong decision because of fear and not sufficient faith. Because again, back to nature, all you have to do is if you go to a park and just look at ducks, how did they find food? And there's even like a saying, there is no blind duck will go without a nest. And in reality, there is a higher force that will look after it. I mean, how does a deer find this food? If animals can be relaxed, with you have friends around, that doesn't mean you sleep the entire day, but if you are more relaxed, you are much more likely to go for the solution that's more appropriate for you, and you will work in a way that doesn't tie you down. And I was surprised with the things that you brought up, I think, on this concept of seva, and I'm going to answer in the same fashion like you've opened up. Through the yoga practice, I also use the concept of karma yoga, which is basically it comes from Hinduism as well. So it's a concept that is implies that the activity that you do, you can use your life and you can use all the activities that you do in an integrated way, in a godly way, by basically offering them to the higher good. And in that way, you are actually becoming a channel for transformation for yourself and for the others. And you are more selfless. You don't go in completely contracted and you know, what's mine and what you need to have will come to you. Relax.
It's funny you said about nature as well. You know, when you said animals, you know, you don't have to sleep all day. You've not met my cat. So my cat just sleeps. She sleeps and she gets up to eat, and almost we know what time it is without a watch, because she'll turn up in the morning when I get up and I feed her, and at 6 o'clock she literally comes by your leg saying, I want to eat. The rest of the day she almost goes outside the place for a bit and then she sleeps. And I thought, this is a great life. Like, my cat has a great life. So I think I can learn so much from her, being there, just looking at her and say, she's fine and she'll always be fine. She's in the right, you know, right environment. She chose us. We took her in a few years ago, and from not having a pet to actually, and not knowing how my life was complete without her. So I'm so blessed that she turned up for me.
And she's not overthinking anything, right?
Not at all. Not at all. Now, Irina, at this juncture, I'd really like to say thank you. Thank you for, you know, the energy you've been giving into this. It's been honest, it's been open, and I always appreciate guests that come on and just you know, open themselves up and almost become vulnerable to the information that they give, because, you know, you can be drawn into trying to, you know, create some kind of image for yourself, or trying to be a veneer, or trying to be this, or trying to be that. And for me, it's never worked. Authenticity is, you know, the label that anyone has an authentic life. It means you have a good life and an honest life, where you don't have to keep thinking over your shoulder, what am I looking like, what am I saying, because it's just a truth, and we are just human beings. So, you know, at this juncture, I'd just like to thank you. Now, as we reach sort of towards the end of this podcast, there's a couple more questions I'd like to ask you. Just a couple of things to let the listeners understand a little bit more about yourself. Okay, so now we're projecting 100 years in the future. So you've reached a hugely massive milestone where you've reached the end of your life. Okay, you've done all the things you've meant to do. You've served, you've educated, and you've given a life to so many people. And you look back and you're like, I wish no change to the life I've had. But now we're at the end of your life. You've got a few moments left. And you don't have enough energy to speak, but you have enough energy to write down 3 words. Now, those 3 words have helped you all your life, and by sharing them, you hope it will help the people listening in their lives. What would those 3 words be for you?
I'd probably say find the truth. As in the quote from Jesus, find the truth and the truth shall set you free. And the quotes of great masters who said, find who you truly are, or, you know, understand who you truly are. So find that truth.
Find your truth and be your truth, right? And live your truth, because that's all we have in the end, right? That's our foundation as a human being.
That is liberating. When you realize who you truly are, you realize the greatness that you truly are. nothing else needs to be done. And everything else becomes just an enchanting joy.
Now, this podcast is called Bigger Than the Hustle, and right now you're bigger than the world. So I've got this mic and it's connected to 7.58 billion people on this planet. They can all hear you. They're all conscious. They all understand you. There's no language barrier, and they're all listening and waiting to hear what you've got to say. So if I hand this mic over to you for the next 30 seconds, what would your message be to the world?
Find who you truly are and live up to that truth, and know that this path is real. Attaining that freedom is not in the books. Others have done it before you. There is the path of humanity, and there is the path of the consciousness in you to achieve your oneness and your state of greatness that exists in you.
I love the oneness. I love the understanding that we are all a part of this one symbiotic system called the universe. We're all cells, and we're here to be strong, and we're here to live in communion with the rest of the universe, so that we know we are here for a purpose and we're here for a reason. If we don't know, even if we don't know, just have trust and faith that you're meant to be here, right?
Yes.
And we were meant to be talking today, Irina.
Absolutely.
And I am so grateful for you coming on. This conversation, it always sparks me up, when we have conversations that are positive, when we have conversations that are nurturing and they're soul nourishing. That's the way I see it. You've done so many things already in your life, and I know there's so much more to go. That's just your nature. There's so much more to go, right? So at this juncture, I'd just like to say thank you. Thank you for your time today. I know it's very last minute we contacted and we communicated, and it was meant to happen that way. So thank you so much. Is there anything you'd like to say before we go?
I just want to say thank you. I'm grateful for this opportunity. It was very unexpected. I said yes to it, and I enjoyed it. And what I'd like to say for the listeners is trust the miraculous, and when you open up to life opens up back. So just have the courage to say yes.
And the life and the universe is a mirror to what you put up, right? It shows you back what you reflect out in the first place. So you want to see more goodness, be more good yourself. You want to see happiness, be happy yourself. You want to see giving, be giving yourself, and it will reflect.
And grateful.
Exactly. Well, yeah, of course. You give more gratitude, and you'll see more gratitude in return. And that's, I've always said, the universe is a mirror and a reflection to the life you're living. So if you want to see any change in the world, like Michael Jackson said, right, be the change yourself first, and the whole world will change in front of you. So thank you so much again, Irina. Hope you have a fantastic day for the rest of the day. And I know we'll do this again. I will be in touch, and we will talk outside of this more as well, because I do like your energy and I like the conversations we have, and I'm sure we can share a lot of knowledge and a lot of skills, and we can try and help each other in the future as well. So thank you.
Excellent. Thank you.
Now, this was Bigger Than the Hustle podcast. Now, before I leave, I'd just like to leave you with a message. Big energy leads to big thoughts. Big thoughts lead to big ideas. Big ideas lead to big actions. And big actions lead to a big life. So keep thinking big. Until next week, goodbye.
We're not saying words like taboo and men's mental health in 10 years' time. It is just a normal conversation. It is actually, rather than talking about how many pints we can drink on a weekend, let's talk about how your week's been, or is there anything I can help you with. So that's kind of my main goals, to be honest.